All right.
Yay.
Hello, Facebook. Hello, Instagram. Welcome to Afternoons with Ems. We did it. I know. I'm getting better, y'all. It didn't take me that much time to get on and see you.
Yeah.
Welcome to Afternoons with Ems, where we are continuing the How to Parent a Unicorn Child and that series. I know, but I just love that name, and probably every parent out there is saying like, well, my child's a bit of a unicorn. I mean, we all have unique kids.
Yeah.
But today we are here with my friend Kate Hubbell. We had kids at the same private school. We left that private school, then they left that private school, and then we all went to another private school. And that's how we
had the
met.
Privilege of meeting that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to want to talk to me here, but you want to talk to me there, or else
I won't. Okay, I won't look.
Don't look at me. I know that feels weird, but or else everyone watching us will see this the whole time,
all right.
And it's better if they just see us. Yeah, we talk this way, like we're talking in a mirror.
Okay.
Oh, my hand looked really big on Facebook. Okay, I'm gonna try not to talk with my hands, so you guys aren't like, what's that weird Martian hand? But anyway, so we met when they were transitioning to the school that we were already at, and Kate had some questions about some stuff that was going on with her son and reached out to me because I had already been a few steps ahead of her in the journey with our son with his dyslexia. So Kate, tell everyone a little bit about you, who you are, the story.
Yes. I'm so glad our paths crossed because it was very, that timing was just great. I'm Kate Hubbell, and I'm married to Mike. We've been married about 15 years, have 3 kids, and so it's son, daughter, daughter. So, and we'll probably be talking about Drew the most today, but Drew is 10, and then Bryn is 8 with her Rosie together. They're buddies. And then our baby of the family is 5. So 3 kids. I'm formerly a nurse and a pianist, but
And a vocalist.
Yeah, that all kind of comes into play.
And she sings in the worship.
Yeah, there you go.
And you are just on a pause of singing in the chorale, right?
Yep.
So she sings with the Spokane Symphony chorale.
Yeah, all that. So
And
I can't figure out what I want to be when I grow up, so I'll just...
Well, I think we just keep being, right? We just keep figuring out as we go on. We're trying to be moms that also have some varied interests and it's not just all about our kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I'm still working on that.
I know. Yeah.
And then your husband is...
And my husband, Mike, is a surgeon, and he's ear, nose, throat surgeon. So, yeah.
All right. So tell everyone a little bit about, we're doing this theme, parenting a unicorn, and what that really means is we're just talking about kids that are differently abled, whether that means that they have Down syndrome or a disease that makes their body work different, or brains learning challenges that make their brains work a little bit different. And I just think that the more we can educate ourselves on all of the differences out there among all the kiddos, the better we can be a community that helps support them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I love that. It's good.
And I just think that that's our job, right? That is our job to do that with our own children, and then
with each other.
Yeah, with each other.
I think that's been the really neat thing about this, is just having you walk a couple steps ahead of us in this journey, and that's been a huge help. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I always think, I say this, and because it's been played out in my own life, I think it's so important to have friends that have kids just a few ages ahead of yours, so that you always have that person that you can be like, hey, did your kiddo do? Or, and especially if you have kiddos that have any sort of differences, it's nice to find someone else who has someone similar, a few ahead, because then you just have that.
It's a good sounding board of just, oh yeah, that happened to us, and here's how we got through that. And yeah, it's been really good to do that.
All right, I put my notifications ding.
It's all right. Technical difficulties happen.
Let's see. Okay, we're back on Instagram, but Facebook is still trying to reconnect. Reconnecting. Anyway, okay. We're just going to keep going. Hopefully Facebook gets there.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm going to hold on Instagram one sec. I might end this.
End and restart.
End. And then we're going to restart. I think I went too easy, right? We started
I
right up.
I was going to say that was...
And, yeah. Okay.
But you can do it all. It's okay.
Well, we're going to see. I don't know if it's having a real hard time.
Maybe. Oh, leave site.
Oh, cancel. Okay, come on. I just want you to go down for a sec. There we go. Okay, hang on, Instagram.
We're getting there. She's working her magic.
I'm trying to get my little Facebook back up and going. But I am new to our Apple computer, and all right, I'm gonna have to play with it for a sec.
That's fun.
Okay,
Getting there.
I think we're getting there.
You should see, I walked in and Emily's doing beautiful craft projects and prepping for a speech tomorrow.
There's just a lot going on. All right.
She's doing it well.
Okay.
Really good.
We're gonna, come on.
Ending
Let's
live
go
video.
to, all right.
Oh, still broadcasting.
Stay on this page.
Huh.
Are we? Okay. But how do I? All right, I'm so sorry. This is, okay. Hold on, I'm gonna leave this page. We're gonna,
Restart, maybe.
maybe.
Where's
Not
Tristan
now.
when we need
I
him?
know. I am gonna, okay. No. This is terrible.
Facebook, come on,
What
work.
is going on? Okay, I think we're almost there.
Oh,
Okay,
looking hopeful.
here we go.
Okay, there we go.
We're back.
Let's try
Sorry.
again.
We're gonna
Maybe go live.
live.
All right,
And if you have
Back
stuck
on.
with us for this
Sorry
whole
about that.
time, I just want to apologize.
we're back again.
Okay, we're going live again. Okay.
Take two. There we go. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, great, awesome. Sorry, Instagram. Thanks for hanging in there for like that long pause of technical difficulties.
We're back on.
Okay.
For a while, hopefully.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Okay. So, talk a little bit about your with Drew. What you noticed, how you
Okay.
kind of got to the process of getting him diagnosed. Like what happened there? What was the process?
Okay, so dyslexia, kind of for us, it took on a different story than most people. I know typically most people are like, oh, dyslexia, where you just like see things backwards and you can't read in order or something. And that actually was not our experience with Drew. And
Okay.
so it took a while to actually get him diagnosed correctly.
Yeah.
Because as a kindergartner and first grader, he was reading well and was keeping up with his peers great. And he was a busy little guy and always has been. Just super energetic and needed to kind of physically go from one thing to another. But reading was fine. So for us, it didn't actually get diagnosed until 3rd grade. I texted my husband this morning, was like, was it 2nd grade or 3rd grade? It was the beginning of 3rd grade that he actually did get diagnosed with dyslexia. And the reason that we finally were realizing that there was something that was not connecting in 2nd grade, when they go from really the basics of reading to the basics of writing, that was really where we started noticing for him any just like little essay question or their spelling tests, he just did not have a brain compartment for that. And it just like, no matter how hard we tried, and we spent most of that poor little guy's 2nd grade year just around the dining room table, just trying to get him to understand spelling and just write the word. And it would just be, it just would not happen, So once we finally got him diagnosed in 3rd grade, it made so much sense how he was trying his hardest. And it was not a matter of laziness or we hadn't explained phonics well enough or, it's a thing. It's a brain wiring thing.
Yeah. Well, but until you know,
yeah,
you become like, you go into drill sergeant mode, right?
Sure.
You're just like, we are just going to pound these math facts into you. We are going to, you are going to write these spelling words 20 times each every day for a week. And,
that poor little guy.
And then they do all that and they still don't do well on their test.
Right.
And you're like, what happened? And they're thinking, I'm a failure, but I'm trying. They're honestly trying as hard as they can. And you're thinking, they're just not paying, like they're not getting it. They're not paying attention.
Right.
Because it was pretty evident to me from kindergarten.
Yeah, for
Tristan that something was off. But we just kind of kept pushing that square peg through a round hole because everyone was telling us, don't get him tested until 3rd grade. That's when it really shows. And I think of the years we could have spared that little buddy if we would have gotten him tested earlier.
In hindsight,
Because I think we could have helped him program his brain earlier versus the path that he went down. But it was what it was, and it like went the route that it did, and we ended up having Tristan diagnosed at it. So our son repeated 3rd grade twice, and so his first 3rd grade year we had him diagnosed at one place. Then we had him diagnosed at another place because we didn't feel like the first diagnosis was accurate or helping us with what we really felt like was going on. We needed a place that also offered a lot of support.
I'm so glad that you had Wendy on last week. She did such a fabulous job. If you didn't see that episode last week with Wendy Popa and the Winston Center here in Spokane, we are so lucky to have everything she's doing with speech language and dyslexia. And it's a fabulous center for kiddos with special learning needs. So
it is, and it's that one-stop shop. I really feel like so that you are not running all over the place looking for specialists for your child. They're right there. So,
and I have to thank you for that because you did all the
I did all the pre-running because we actually had
and
Tristan.
Then you're like, and just go to Winston.
Just go to Winston Center. That's where, The one thing about having walked through this is that you can kind of see it in your other people's kiddos with So I had spent a little time with Drew, and I was like, yeah, you might want to.
And you're hearing me saying we're spending an hour and a half or 2 hours on spelling, and you're like, and let me tell you the shortcut.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how was your diagnostic process? Talk to parents a little bit about how what that looked like and how what are they gonna, if they get to this point where they're ready to do something like that with their child, what can they expect?
Yeah, so I think the Winston Center is, again, an amazing place. I walked in and it's so bright and welcoming, and we were meeting with a speech language pathologist who professionally, I didn't know that they did this at all. I didn't think that we needed speech language, and so I was like, he's speaking fine. What do you why are we meeting with you? But part of their training is the assessment piece of any kind of learning disability. And I had no idea all the battery of tests that they would run him through. And it's not even just written tests, because obviously that would be really hard for kiddos with dyslexia. But a lot of it was actually on an iPad and having them rearrange words or asking them to, here's a list of things, can you repeat these back to me? Just all kinds of brain gymnastics with words, with spelling, with language, and really kind of finding strengths and weaknesses, because each kiddo is so different in the dyslexia spectrum or the dysgraphia spectrum or the dyscalculia, whatever they're testing.
Verbal processing, sensory process, whatever their thing is that they've got going on. Yeah.
And I love the part about their office is they're so used to dealing with every type of kiddo really, but Drew I remember this for testing, he was sitting on a big bouncy ball stool, and it was the coolest, because for this busy guy, we knew he was extremely bright and it wasn't coming out on his tests or what he was doing in school, and so he's sitting there just having a great time because he's able to move a little bit, and he's testing like with his full brain engaged. And it was really amazing to watch that as a parent and be like, they know what my kiddo needs already.
Right.
So that was great.
When they did testing with Tristan, they gave him like fidgets.
Yes.
And so he was, the whole time he was testing, he was able to do something with his hands, which is something he had gotten in trouble with in class.
Sure.
Because it's distracting, right? To have a kiddo like clicking something or whatever. But for Tristan, that's how his brain engages. Like he can move his hands, chew some gum, do some different things that help like
brain stimuli.
Yes, and that's what he needed. And so when during all of his testing, they were giving him things to play with, and we were like, oh, okay. It's not for him saying like you need to hold still wasn't helpful or conducive to learning. And so we just learned his things like that would help him at home. Like, let's do your spelling test while you're like standing on one foot, or you know, where you've got something in your hand, or you're like fiddling with a Rubik's cube. Like, and we started seeing that he was able to just retain the information so much more than when we were like, write it. Just rote repetition didn't work as much as giving him the pathway that his brain learned the best. So now I felt like I went into our appointments feeling like they're going to find something, because there's no way, like something is off here. And so I wasn't really sad when I heard. I think I was more a bit overwhelmed by all of the diagnosis that came back, because I was like, that's a lot, and okay, how do we deal with that? But were you sad at all?
I don't think I was. I actually remember texting you that day and being like,
I do too.
And I remember you asking me that day, like, this is a lot, and you might have to kind of really, grieve this a little bit. And I remember feeling like, oh, should I be sad? Because I actually felt really relieved.
Yeah.
Because I think as moms, just exactly what you said, we knew something was up. And it explains so much to have a diagnosis. And I just heard somebody say this, that there's a gift in the label.
Yes.
Which I thought was so interesting, because we try to stay away from labels so much. But in this case, it's not that you have an unintelligent kid or a lazy kid or just, whatever. To say he has dyslexia or whatever the diagnosis is makes it a thing that you can grapple with and deal with. And like, okay, let's get on board and let's work on that, because it changes the picture.
Totally. But I think, like, I know some moms who have gotten the autistic diagnosis back, and they're like, whew, okay.
Well, and depending on the personality, I think some moms really do need to grieve that. And absolutely, totally fine. I just think
well,
definitely.
And I remember saying that to you, and you were like, I'm not sad, but I am a bit, like, this is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And then you did, I think, what so many people do, but definitely I think that fits your personality. You just like start researching.
I dove into research.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Talk about that a little bit. Like what did you find? What were you looking for, and what did you want to see?
In researching? I think that's just me. In order to understand, I think this is the clinical part of me, and probably of Mike too, is just because we're nurse-doctor combination, we just we need to understand, like, what does this mean, and what are the options from here. And it really was helpful to just kind of dive in deep. For me, I always find that helpful. Like, I'd rather know all the scenarios and then kind of reel it back. And for us, I feel like dyslexia can be a spectrum, much like autism can be a spectrum. And so after reading kind of like all of the things, I was like, oh, well, in Drew's case, I feel like we can make this work, because it's like, he is reading. He's not spelling, and writing is like painful, but I can work within that. There's things that we can do with that. And I think each family kind of has to find what works and what doesn't.
Well, one of the fun things that you did right away was she started sending me like podcasts and TED Talks and all of these things that she found. Which, do you have any, like?
I have a few, so I don't know. There's a great TED Talk, if anybody wants to go look it up, it's called The Gift of Dyslexia, and then this is backwards, but The Dyslexic Advantage is the book that came out of that.
Oh, it's probably right on Facebook.
It's right on Facebook,
but
and it's
Instagram's
on
mirror,
Instagram.
it's flipped. Yeah. So it's funny because look, we're sitting two different ways in
That's right.
I know. It's one of those has dyslexia.
I know. I was like, this is kind of appropriate.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there's great resources, and I think it just helped to change my perspective that this is just a brain wiring difference, and along with some difficulties academically that kids might have in traditional classrooms, they also have these incredible strengths that go with that brain wiring. And so to understand, like, yeah, you're going to have to work harder in these areas, but the things that will come easily are things that you really can't teach. Like, these are kids that are super empathetic and well-connected and good communicators, almost always creative, like incredibly creative people. And so I think there was just a lot of hope in realizing kind of what comes with that diagnosis, and like, oh, I see that in him. I see how, like, yes, there's hard parts and there's great parts.
Yes. But I feel like, and you might too, our family relationship got better with him, with Tristan, once we knew how to help him.
Yes.
Because it was no longer struggling. His frustration level was way less, and so was ours, because we were like, okay, this isn't disobedience, or this isn't a lack of effort. This is a way of learning. This is a way his brain works. And then once we were able to get the help, I just feel like we all got along better. Honestly, we were less tense with the school stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it took the pressure way off, because exactly what you said. It's just not. And I think also, rather than doing what we had done with him when he was 7, poor guy.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of like, let's keep doing this for 4 hours. Like, I don't know very many 7-year-olds that can do homework for 4 hours.
I know.
And so in hindsight, I'm like, oh, we should not have done that.
But we don't know.
We're
figuring it out. It's our first pancake.
Yeah. And so now, like, yes, you need to be able to work hard. You can do hard things, and we want to always have that attitude with him. But then there's an end point where you just say, okay, let's go move, let's go eat, let's go outside. We'll come back to this tomorrow, and that's okay.
It is okay. I think it's really fun to Google the list of like successful dyslexics throughout the ages, and you find out, all of the amazing people.
Einstein and Steven Spielberg and just the list goes on.
It's
and
a
on
huge
and on,
list.
But it's amazing to realize,
and it's encouraging, I think, to give that to your kiddo and show them, like, hey, like, all these people that have done all these incredible things, and they, just like you, just a brain that works a little bit differently. And now, do you think that Drew feels any sort of, we always say in our house, there's no shame in this.
Yes,
and like,
right.
I know you're doing the same thing, but do you think that Drew feels at all his differences in class, or?
I think we always want to check in on that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, you're a couple steps ahead of me in the teen years, and what does that look like differently than the years where, so Drew's 10 right now, he's in 5th grade, and he is a happy kid, like, of all my kids. He's just resilient.
He is
and
happy.
He's happy.
He's darling.
He's
She's
happy.
beautiful children.
But kind of what you see is what you get, and almost all the time he's just funny, happy, resilient. Like, he'll just keep on going. And so I don't feel like he's a kiddo that's going to be bothered by shame very much. And certainly I don't feel like at our house that, like, I think we've talked openly about it, but having that diagnosis really did change how we talk about dyslexia. It's dyslexia. It's not Drew isn't getting this. And I think that helped a ton. And then we're so blessed to be at the school we're at, and the teachers that we're at. I feel like they have done a fabulous job.
There's no teasing at our school about these sorts of things. Like, it does not happen. So there's no bullying. No, I don't feel like with that sort of.
No. And I will say, so this is another thing that I found early on in the dyslexia game. It's a kid's book. If you're so smart, how come you can't spell Mississippi? And I just thought it was kind of a funny title, and so I ordered it. And then it was such a great book. Drew thought this was hilarious because it was exactly his experience. We know he's so bright,
Yeah.
But man, you ask him to spell something, you're like,
Oh, I know.
And so it turned out that his teacher that year, Mrs. Fisher, shout out to Carrie
We
Fisher.
love Carrie Fisher.
She
She has like single-handedly gotten both of our boys
Yeah.
from that tricky age of really where they needed to start taking off with their reading and their spelling. And Drew was a strong reader, but Tristan was not. But Tristan was not a strong speller, and she did such a good job
She's
working
wonderful.
with them.
So he was in her class that year that he got diagnosed, and I mentioned this book to her, and she was like, "Can I have that book?" And the coolest moment, she actually read this book to the class, didn't identify Drew specifically, but it started a class conversation of like, "Oh yeah, my cousin has dyslexia," or "I know so-and-so has dyslexia." And I could see Drew come home that day, and he was like, "We talked about it, and it was awesome, Mom." And like, not everybody learns this way, but it's gonna be good. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment where it just like, it was just another thing. Like some people have brown hair and some people have blonde hair and some people have dyslexia and some people don't.
Right.
So it helps.
And I firmly believe when they grow up comfortable in the skin of who they are, then they're just confident, right? And they're not going to apologize for the way, the things that they might have differently than someone else doesn't have. So like Tristan, and you asked me to share this, so I'm going to talk about it.
I love this story.
But he got up in front of the class to do a math problem. And like me doing a math problem on the board is probably my worst nightmare. Like I don't want to do math in front of anyone. But he gets up and he does the math problem and he does the whole thing backwards and just like completely flip-flopped. And he gets to the bottom and everyone's looking at it like, huh? And his teacher was like, well, it's right, but it's wrong. Like it's the right answer to the reverse problem that you did. And Tristan was like, dyslexia. Like,
see, and I love that. I love that he was so comfortable, even as a teenager. Wasn't he like 12 or 13?
Yeah, it was just, I think, wasn't it like last year or the year before?
Know,
It might have been
what
6th
kid
grade.
can laugh at himself in front of the class and be like, yep, that's dyslexia. I just thought that was such a great example of how you have talked about it in your household, because obviously he is confident and comfortable and nobody made fun of him, but it was just kind of like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
Well, he had his buddies here for his birthday a little while ago, and he was reading a card from one of our relatives, and she's actually on here, so I'm gonna tell her. So it was from our relatives Jane and Dan Kirpin, and Tristan read the card from Dane. Did I just say it wrong?
No,
Did I say
not yet. No.
Wait. It was from Jan and Dane Kirpin.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying it wrong. Oh my gosh, now I'm saying it the way. It was from Jane and Dan. That was who the relative was. Tristan read the card, Dan and Jane.
Yes. Flip.
Dane and, no, he read it. No, I'm not getting this right. This is so funny. Okay, he read the card, Dane
and Jan.
Dane and Jan. Yeah, Dane and Jan. That's how he read the card. And as I heard him reading it, I was like, okay, read that again. And he read it again that way. And I was like, one more time, bud. And then I said, okay, who are these relatives? And he goes, Adam's mom and dad, the Kirpins. And I was like, okay, what are their names? Dan and Jane. What did you read? Dane and Jan. And I was like, okay. And then he just laughed, and his friends were like sitting all around him, and we were working through it. And he was like, oh, Mom, it's just dyslexia. It's just like, and his buddies were like, he does this all the time. And we were like, yeah, that's just what dyslexia looks like. Like you read things funny and you do it, like it just, your brain, he doesn't know it. Is that your phone?
I'm sorry. This
It's
is
okay.
like my alarm that goes off every
okay,
day.
she's going to get her alarm. Anyway, so that was just, like, I think that when we can help our children feel really comfortable with their differences, we give them the ability to be confident in exactly who they were created to be, and then that will not become a stumbling block in their lives. They will not be able to use that as an excuse to not step into their purpose. And I never want Tristan to use his learning differences as an excuse. I want him, if anything, to use them as a motivator, as a springboard to tap into the areas that he is really strong in. So this is one thing, and I don't know if they said this to you, but someone told us, one of the Winston Center people said, it is really good to help them capitalize on their strengths.
Yes.
So, have you guys been like,
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that, what that looks like in Drew's life.
So I thought one of the things that I found was really helpful from Winston Center was, yes, capitalize on your strengths, and then also make sure that he knows what his strengths are, because that's going to carry him through so much of life. And so it's been interesting. Obviously, we're still at a very young age. He's 10. And so I feel like we have quite a bit of time still before he's graduating and needing to decide, like, who am I?
Yes.
But already it's just been really fun to see his strengths. We're all pretty musical. So, like, when Drew just starts jamming, incredibly innovative little music brain, which none of us actually have, but that's totally different. And then creating, drawing in his free time, like his favorite pastime. And I think it's so interesting to see what he goes to in free time is just like Lego building and drawing these incredible creations and designing things in his head, and just very creative. But I wonder if there will be an architecture kind of bent in the future or something along that line. I don't know. But,
So Maureen asked a great question. She said, do your kids still enjoy the Winston Center, and is there an end in sight for therapy? Yes. So Maureen, we just do checkups now. Like if Tristan's struggling with something, we go back in and we'll do maybe like a program that they'll put him in one of their group programs towards something that he's working on. But we're not currently doing any therapy, and we just did stuff at home this summer that he did a spelling app. We're always working on that spelling. We did a couple different things to help him with logging in a little bit more math now that he's getting into some more advanced math. But we did a year of pretty intense work there, and then we kind of have tapered off, and just I just go if I feel like there's something that is feeling sticky or tricky, and then the counselors there help us figure out what we need to do. And what about you? I know
we're still there. We're in year 2 of therapy there. We've tapered down to like every week, so it's not multiple times a week. But for us, they wanted to go back through and rework the spelling curriculum. Seems to be the area that Drew needs the most help. So they use something called Orton-Gillingham approach, which is a certain curriculum that makes a lot more sense to a dyslexic brain. So they're kind of going back through and reworking spelling from the very beginning and working it through, trying to close the gap into where he is in 5th grade now. And so I think that's the goal, is to always be closing the gap and making, because they need to be literate, right? They still have to read, write, spell, and do those things, even if it is harder. I think that's the goal is, yes, this is a thing, let's strategize and make it work in life.
But it's not forever. You won't do it forever. And they give you a pretty definite timeline of what they think you'll be there for, and which is helpful, I think.
And I think that they just started doing these group sessions so that the kids have the ability to be together with other kids of similar learning styles. I think that's very insightful and very interesting to give them a community of like, oh, I totally do that too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
So, okay, you and I have navigated this world for a few years now. Let's talk about what are some of the tips and tricks we've learned that we think have been helpful to our kids. That helps them like start the school year, throughout the school year. Talk a little bit about.
I feel like I'm just giving your tips and tricks.
Well, just pass them off as your own.
Fair.
That's good. No, it's
these
good.
are mostly from Emily. I feel like this has been the biggest help, and this was something you told me early on, was just meeting with the teachers at the front end of the school year. And that made such a difference, rather than like waiting for that first test to come back and then they find out and then you play catch up. So Emily's idea has been brilliant, to go in even before school starts with either a letter or an email or whatever the communication form that works best, or face-to-face is awesome. And just say, hey, this is us. We want to partner with you. We're not trying to add more work to your already busy teaching lives, because we know teachers are giving their all. So I'm not trying to add more, but here's who you're going to meet. This is Drew. This is Tristan. This is what we've noticed. He's in therapy. We're aware of these things. And then we can go into like accommodations and tips and tricks that have worked. But I will just say that opening meeting with teachers has just been groundbreaking. Like, just because it puts you on the same page. You're not trying to go after a teacher and she doesn't feel, or he or she doesn't feel animosity. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let's do this together.
Well, in some years, I didn't do it this year. I just grabbed his teachers real quick. But some years I've handed like a little, like, this is how he tests the best. This is like, these are some things that will help him succeed. And so that they just have that. They can read it at their leisure. It doesn't have, you don't have to have a huge conversation, but it just tells them, okay, this is like, for Tristan, he doesn't do time tests well. So we have learned that we just don't time test Tristan. There is no reason why he needs to take a math test in 15 minutes if doing a half an hour is what he needs. So like, we just work that with his teachers ahead of time, and we found that he succeeds so much more, and that they then come towards him knowing what's going to help him succeed, and not trying to create something there that isn't going to work for him. I feel like
yeah, exactly. I was just pulling this out. This is a little card that the Winston Center had in their office, and it's basically just a great little infographic to hand to teachers.
I'm going to hold it up real quick.
It's from understood.org.
We'll go to Facebook first.
Yep.
So what is dyslexia?
Yep.
It's got all sorts of helpful things. Okay, Instagram.
And then to give that to teachers and just say things exactly like what you said, just allowing extra time on tests, or if it's a writing assignment, maybe not correcting spelling, but correcting content and grammar, like one thing at a time, rather than like getting a whole page back that's just red is not going to help any kid. But just helping teachers to be like, oh, yeah, I just wanted to see creative writing. And for us, the thing that's made a huge difference for Drew has been speech-to-text software. When teachers allow him to come home with his writing assignments or creative writing or whatever, because the content that's in his head is incredible, but getting it from here to paper is always, that's the challenge. And so for us, speech-to-text software has been so helpful that he goes down, has to do his writing assignment, and so that means he's speaking it into a microphone, and it's typing it for him, but he still has to go back through and edit, make sure that all the grammar and punctuation, everything is correct. But the amount of, it was just like, his vocabulary is incredible when it's through that means, rather than
when it's oral, right? When he's able to get it out orally.
Yeah.
What is that speech? I don't know about that. What is that?
There's a lot of different programs.
Which one are you using?
We're using, I think it's just like Google speech to text is working for us. Google has one. There's a very expensive one that physicians use. It's called Dragon. We actually don't have it, but a lot of physicians dictate their notes into their chart that same way. So there's a lot of speech to text programs, and it's getting better technology as the years go on. It's still a little bit iffy sometimes. You get, just like when you're talking to Siri and you're like, no, that's not what I said.
Yeah, right.
It's getting better. But that does really help for kiddos that really struggle with even getting words on paper. Huge help. And that technology is going to be there when they go to college and beyond.
So I definitely think meeting with their teachers ahead of time, giving them the heads up about what's coming is super helpful. I think helping your child have an orderly mind is because they've got a lot of stuff competing in there, and so all the other kids might write down the assignments in their planner or on their whatever place they're supposed to write it down, and your kiddo gets home and they're like, no, I don't know, like, or like it's just looking right, you're not understanding what, like, and so usually I will have the teachers text me the homework for the week, or we have a great thing on our school called Jupiter where we're able to go on and look, and so then I keep track of, hey, I know tonight you have this math assignment, and as he's gotten older, we've been able to do less and less of that because his brain is maturing, and the more that he follows something of a certain order, the more he catches on that that's how we do it. So there's less of that, but but I
That's a
still
good
check
example.
in with his homework
Yep.
all the time to help to just make sure he knows what he's supposed to do, and that that he has the right thing written down, that it's correct.
And we're kind of at the point now too where we're also letting natural consequences play out as well.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we're checking, and then there are also times when, okay, he didn't tell me that, and I'm going to let him find that out from the teacher tomorrow, that he wasn't organized and he needs to understand how to do that himself too. So there is grace enough for that to kind of have those small checks and balances of.
Yeah, well, they do. I mean, the point is to help them enough that they learn to help themselves.
Yes.
And whether your kid has any learning challenges or not, right? That's what you do in parenting. You help them enough till they learn to help themselves. And but I think with a kind of scrambled brain, that is what dyslexia feels like. That's how Tristan describes it. Is that then sometimes they don't even realize that they didn't have the right thing written down or the right order, and then Tristan will get frustrated with himself because he's like, oh, I tried so hard to do the right thing, and he just doesn't have the information. So that's where I always try to help him out and say, okay,
text a friend.
Yes, how do we get this information right? How can we? So I think
I think one more thing I was going to throw in here. This was actually a new thing for us this year at 5th grade level, and of course I called Emily and was like, what do I do now? Their science class, they have to actually take notes in science, and so they're handed like a blank science notebook, composition notebooks, and she's gonna lecture and you're gonna take notes. And of course I could envision that just being like crash and burn for Drew. He'd get to the second paragraph and just be that's a lot of mental energy, because they're working 10 times harder than their peers to do the same thing.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh man, this is gonna be really tough for him. So I called Emily and was like, all right, what could we do here? And in talking to Emily and talking to the science teacher, we ended up with this idea of she gives me the overview notes, and then she was like, I'm gonna give this project to you, Mom. Make it fill in the blank notes, because active listening is a really important skill. We want our kids to be tuned in to lectures and taking notes where they can.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank, great. He can do that because it's some words, but not all the words.
Yes.
And I think that was really smart on her part, because it allowed us to partner together, like parent, teacher, child. I don't want to add more work for her life as a teacher, but I want to help my son be able to learn effectively. And so that was a really good interchange in general. So good job, Mrs. Brash.
And I think things like that are so helpful for our kids, but they're helpful for the teachers to know too, that we're willing to meet them
absolutely
where they need us to in order to help our kid. It's not on them. And if you have a child that has any sort of learning challenges, you're in it, parents, you got to do the work to get your kid what they need. And sometimes that means doing things like making notes so that your child can follow along. But
we're going to do oral tests. Many times you've gone in to help with oral testing for Tristan.
Oh yeah.
You do put in a little extra time.
You do what you need to do. So those are some things right there. We meet with our teachers ahead of time. We help our kids keep their lives organized, their assignments organized. We will help figure out learning systems so that our kid can keep up with the class in the way that they learn the best. Is there anything else in there that I'm
that's good.
thinking of?
A lot of good communication.
A lot of communication. Sometimes, when Tristan was younger, we made strips that had pictures on it that showed this is instead of, if we gave him a list and he was supposed to write it down, no. But if we showed him pictures, okay, you're gonna do these 5 things in this order, then he was like, I can do that. I see the picture, I can do it. And the pictures helped him remember more than the words did. So that was something we did. He had one by his school desk, every day when he got to school, these are the things you did. Make sure you had sharp pencils, that your homework was put in the basket, because it was just stuff like that we saw.
So helpful to do that and break it down into simple steps. I was listening to another podcast lately of somebody, it was just about parenting boys in general, not dyslexia, but it was this idea of give simple steps, just one at a time. Because when we tell them, like, come home, put your gear in the hallway, and then go read this book, and then come back and check on me, and I want you to do this homework and this homework, and they're just like,
yeah,
what? And I feel like a lot of times we're just telling our sons, like, no, you didn't do that right, just do it. Like, that negativity is really hard for them.
Yes.
And so the challenge was give them one simple instruction and have them come back and check in with you, and you get to say, great, thank you so much for doing that. And so there's that praise that's built in right away, and then they go off and do the next thing. And I was like, that is, like, I don't know, Mike was like, that's brilliant. We all need to do that.
Totally.
One thing at a time.
Yes, and I think one thing that's really important to remember and to do is to give them downtime, give them a break, because their brains are working harder. They are it feels a lot more intense, a school day does, and they get tired, so they need time in a creative outlet that they enjoy. So for my son, that looks like drawing. He loves to sit and draw and he would do it for hours. And we need to give him time to let his brain be free of the things that are really hard for him, and to just do something that is where he blooms, where his brain is active and it fires on all those transmitters are transmitting in the way that makes him feel good, and that comes naturally to him. So I think it's really important to build breaks into their life, amongst their therapy, amongst their homework,
school days are long, and definitely to do that. And I also think sports has played a huge role for both of our sons. Tristan's a runner, and we've recently discovered Drew is a swimmer.
I think Drew's gonna be the next Michael Phelps. You should see like the wingspan on that kid.
I don't know, but
he's good. His so butterfly was good. It was good.
It's so fun to find what your kid clicks at and what they're successful at. And so cheering Tristan on as he like sweeps the field, and then Drew coming into the field. Like, those are really fun for kids that struggle in these other areas. And they need the physical outlet of what a sport brings them, and the neurotransmitters that come with endorphins and sports and moving, like, definitely really,
they
really
need
helpful.
To have those things that they're good at. So we need to wrap up pretty soon, but just two things that do you think that this affects the sibling dynamic at all, or like your family dynamic at all?
I don't know. I struggled with that question. I was like, I don't know.
I think it's much different when you have a kid that has some big challenges, right?
Sure.
So like some big differences in their life.
Sure, because then the siblings would have to accommodate a lot more. Maybe not so much in our family. I'm noticing with our other two daughters who don't have dyslexia, they're not as persistent as Drew is, because he has always had to work hard at whatever. And so our girls are naturally, things come pretty easily to them. And yet then when they run into a roadblock, just minor stuff, they don't have the patience that he has. So it's always interesting to be like, oh, that's right, you haven't dealt with this. So each kid is so different that I don't know.
It was interesting. Rosie the other night at the dinner table said, I just think I would like to have a little bit of dyslexia. And I don't know if that was just because it seems fun to get extra attention, or get to do some different therapies, or get to do your spelling playtime, like on your iPad, because that's how he's doing an app right now for his spelling. Like, I don't know, but I was like, I don't think I think you're good. But I just think that for it is a part of our family.
It is
layering, and it's just, this is what Tristan has. This is Rosie's stuff. Like, it's not. It doesn't feel. I don't know what the word I'm looking.
I think it's pretty neutral. In both of our families, but that's a different generational thing, because in the recent past, I think dyslexia had a lot more shame attached to it, and so I know for people that are a little bit older than our kids, they did not talk about this stuff. It was really hard. Really, really hard. And there was a lot of shame and a lot of self-identity problems and self-esteem things that go along with it. So hopefully we're changing that as a culture.
Well, on that note, when you think about Drew's future, and this is, I think, I'll just ask you one more question after this, but when you think about Drew's future, do you see any limitations there, or do you just feel optimistic?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's some limitations. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it's all just like rainbows and flowers and no problem. But I do think that the strengths that he has will probably drive what he does into adulthood. And so I feel like hopefully now, as we close the gaps at 10, 11, 12, 13, through these years, I think he has a really bright future. And probably the things that he gravitates toward anyway will be where he ends up as an adult. So I think paying attention to the strengths, again, like you mentioned before, I think that's so important. Like, yes, dyslexia is a thing. Yes, we need to strategize well because of it, but look what you can do. And, so that's, you're closer to the finish line. So how do you think that?
I feel like he can absolutely 100% do anything that he wants to do. I do not think air traffic controlling is in his future.
Let's keep this guy as friendly.
Yes, totally. Other left. Like, no, right. We don't want that up there. But I 100% believe that this kiddo can put his heart and mind to something and accomplish it, and that he will have a foundation of support under him to reach whatever goals he wants. And I can say that thankfully, believing that, well, we've seen it throughout ages. People with learning challenges have gone on to do incredible things, and they're not limited by them, and they're able to do them because of the way their brain works. That is why they think the way they do, why they create the way they do. And so I am more curious to see where he ends up. Do I think that we've got some rough years of math ahead of us as we head into like algebra 1 to calculus, trigonometry, geometry? Yeah, I do. I'm not gonna lie. I know we'll be doing tutoring. I know we'll be asking Siri. I know, like, whatever tools at our disposal, we will be using
all
them.
All of the tools.
Yes, we will be using all the tools. But I feel nothing. But I feel like we too will get through those things, and he may choose to never take another math class again. He may go into a major where he doesn't have to, and fine. That will be his. That is absolutely what he can do. Yeah. So, okay, one last question that I'm asking every guest that has really nothing to do with dyslexia, but I'm just asking, like, in your life, mama of 3.
Yes.
This is Kate's first year where she has all 3 of her children in school full time.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All of 2 weeks that I've
all
had.
Of 2 weeks that she's had. Yes. We're only in our second week of our big kids school. So, so with all of the things, like, what are the best next steps that you are taking for yourself in your life right now?
I actually had to think about that one because I was like, oh, me? Are we talking about me?
Yeah, we're going to talk about you for a minute.
You don't want to talk about me. I think this year, my best next step is actually self-care, which actually, it sounds so weird to say that, but I've been watching your videos, and there's so much of that comes through, because as mamas, it's all about them and their schedule and the kids' schedule and the husband's schedule and like serving the next meal. And I think I've done that so intensively it's been 10 years with a toddler on my leg, and I'm so glad for those years. I wouldn't trade them. But this is the first year that I feel like I can take a breath, and I'm going to go on a walk in quiet, or like go to a yoga class, or just those kinds of self-care decisions of like, I'm going to choose to check in with what I need today, and not just be serving everybody else all the time. So
I think that's super important. And I think especially when you have kiddos with something a little extra, you are really giving it out a lot, just without even, I think it's just automatic. You're just like, you're in a habit of knowing what they need. And I think one of the times I talked about this, that I was home with a small kiddo for 13 years until we got that one off, because my kids are spread so far apart. I only have 2, but they sure like took their time. I mean, it was like, I think that once I finally got her in kindergarten, I was able to say, okay, what are some of the things I need to do in order to be the mom that I want to be, the person, the wife, the person to myself that I'd like to be. And I think that that's so important. I'm so glad you're doing that.
Just taking a breath.
Yes.
Yeah. figuring it out.
Rosie's kindergarten year, I said I didn't say yes to any commitments.
So
I didn't
smart.
volunteer in, like, I volunteered where I wanted to in the classroom or whatever, but I didn't join in any, like, big volunteering thing, and I just sorted myself out.
Oh, good. Can I do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
I think that's the thing.
I think I'm going to do that.
All right, so we're going to wrap up, but next week I am having, it's a double afternoons with Ems. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but Micah May is coming on. She has a son, Jackson, that has Down syndrome, and she will be coming on to talk about what life is like with a kiddo with Downs, and what that looks like, raising her special unicorn buddy. And I'm so excited to have her on. And then the very next day, so she'll be coming on next Wednesday. The very next day, my friend Michelle Gobble is coming on just to give, she is an amazing parent. And she's just gonna come on and give all of us some blanket parenting tips. And I'm so excited to have her on. She's done a lot of study about this thing. She's taught classes on it. And I just think that there's always good wisdom there, and we can always learn a few new ways to rephrase a question, reshape a consequence, redirect a kiddo, and she'll be offering all of that. So it's a big week next week, but join us, and thank you so much for being part of this series of Parenting Our Unicorn Kids. And I hope that we're all taking away a little bit more of how we can love well on all these kids that cross our paths, that are their own unique, special brand of awesomeness. And what a blessing it is that we even get the chance to have them cross our paths. So, all right, have a great day, friends. And
That goes fast, doesn't it?
it does, doesn't it?